I was thinking about the end of history. I've been thinking about this a lot, but I can't put it into words. I don't know. I just can't get the right words for it. The end of the future. That we have lost the future. Now, of course, obviously you can't lose the future, so I'm not meaning this in that sense. The future is still there. There will be some kind of future. But I'm trying to capture this strange feeling of being in this condition where things are pretty good. You have enough food. You're reasonably comfortable. You're safe. Things are not perfect. Things could always be better. But, things are pretty good compared to the way most humans had them for most of history. There's no major war going on. The wars that are going on don't affect me. But on the other hand, there's no positive vision of the future. There's just dark visions. There doesn't seem to be much hope. And it's weird to be in a situation where there doesn't seem to be much hope, and yet things are pretty good. Like there's a kind of strange juxtaposition of the material circumstances of the modern West and the vision of the future that I have, but also I think the lack of a positive vision that has become the norm in our culture. Now, I know some people think that there is this techno-utopian vision. I joked about this being a techno version of Imagine when I was talking to Gilmore. And then I looked on the web and I found a techno version of Imagine. It was terrible. Imagine is not a bad song, I think. I think John Lennon was a good songwriter. It's a pretty good song. It obviously captures a certain idea very well. I don't agree with the idea, but it's a good song. The techno version, on the other hand, was not very pleasant to listen to. But anyway, that techno version of Imagine is like, maybe that's the millennial vision of the future, that will have all kinds of cool technology, and will also have moral progress. But even that seems kind of blah, It's not very appealing, even I would imagine, to people who believe in it. I can't see how it could be very appealing. Like, what is it? We just get more and more alienated from reality by technology. We just become more and more wired and plugged in and whatever. Like, I don't know, we live in virtual reality, or we upload our brains into computers or something. So we become even more alienated from the physical world, the natural world, and also from our natural purpose of reproduction, which we have, already done quite a bit. So to me that seems pretty dystopian, but I suppose maybe some people see that as the end, or the direction we're going. Of course it isn't, because no matter what, you still have to reproduce. Those that reproduce own the future. People who spend all their time on the holodeck having simulated sex are not going to reproduce. But maybe they'll reproduce their minds by uploading them into the cloud or something. I don't know. I don't think so. Yeah, I really don't think so. That's one of the problems with that NRX crowd. They believe all kinds of techno-utopian or dystopian ideas that are not very realistic. But I don't know. I don't see that our culture has much of a vision of the future. It seems like just kind of a holdover from the past. Like we're still running on fumes. Like we haven't figured out that our civilization has stalled. Or it's in decline. We still think we're going forward. Like someone from the future, I'm sure, looking at this point in history, would not view us as on an upward trajectory, but some people in our civilization still think that we're on some kind of upward trajectory because they're just not really paying attention. There hasn't been that much progress, really, even in technology, for a long time, or it has been really limited to a few things like information technology, which is all about fantasy, really. I mean, it's also about allowing us to communicate and compute things. But, well, a lot of that communication is just kind of like fapping, It's sort of like us playing with our emotions collaboratively, rather than doing anything, really. And I think that the future has kind of faded away from our culture. That people don't have a vision of the future, or at least not a positive vision. They don't even have a negative vision anymore. I think the future has been replaced by grayness. Like, if you go back to the 80s, people had these contrasting visions. One was positive and one was negative. The negative vision was nuclear war and or environmental catastrophe. But the positive vision was a techno-utopia, and it was kind of like Star Trek or something like that, where life is still exciting and sexy and adventurous and stuff, more exciting than our mundane lives in modernity. We get to go out and explore space or something like that. And in spite of there being no eugenics, everyone is beautiful and intelligent, Like there was this optimism as well. There was this optimism about the future, which was understandable at the time because there had been a period of very rapid growth of scientific knowledge and technological power. We had really advanced in terms of knowledge and agency in the previous, basically in the middle part of the 20th century. I guess going all the way back, there had been a long period of progress, but it really accelerated in the middle of the 20th century. And there had just been the discovery of quantum theory and all that kind of thing, subatomic particles and quarks, all that stuff. That was all being developed mostly in the 50s and 60s, but, like we had discovered all kinds of really new, exciting ideas. So it was natural to think that we would keep doing that, that we would discover a whole bunch of new things, and those new discoveries might propel us to even greater heights. But what actually happened is we stalled out on most fronts. And then some of the processes of decline started to become evident. Cultural decline, the sexual dystopia after the sexual revolution, demographic decline of the most civilized people, people who had been exposed to modernity the longest or the strongest, started to fade away and be replaced. And now we're at the point where that's almost undeniable. So the real problems of the future were not really anticipated by the negative visions. Well, I guess some of them were, because we will eventually hit resource constraints, but the funny thing is we're hitting other constraints first that people didn't really anticipate. The breakdown of human nature, almost. The dissolution of meaning It's like a bigger problem than running out of natural resources. It's like we ran out of will before we ran out of natural resources. We ran out of purpose and meaning before we ran out of oil or coal. And now, we don't know what to do. We have nowhere to go. We have no vision of where we should go. We're just kind of flailing around as a culture, as a civilization. We're just being propelled into the future by historical processes, rather than choosing the future or even having an idea of where we're going. That's part of the modern zeitgeist. A futureless landscape. We're staring out onto a futureless landscape. It's like time has ceased to exist. It's all just space.